Let's start with a lie we've all been told, or perhaps told ourselves. The lie goes something like this. Happy people are cheerful people. Happy people smile easily, bounce back quickly, and move through life with a kind of effortless lightness. If you're not feeling that way, the thinking goes, something must be wrong with you. But what if that's not happiness at all? What if real, lasting happiness is something far deeper, far quieter, and far more demanding than a permanent smile? Today, we're going to explore what it actually means to live a happy life. And to do that, we're going to travel from a psychology lab in Pennsylvania all the way to the darkest place imaginable, a Nazi concentration camp. In 2003, a psychologist named Martin Seligman published a book called Authentic Happiness. Seligman isn't a self-help guru or a motivational speaker. He's the man widely known as the father of positive psychology, the scientist who said, "Let's stop only studying what's wrong with people and start studying what makes them thrive." His research identified 3 distinct elements of happiness. Not one, not a feeling, 3 separate, interconnected things, and understanding all 3 changes the way you think about your own life. The first element is the one we're most familiar with, positive emotions. Joy, gratitude, love, excitement. These are the feelings we typically point to when we say someone is happy. And yes, they matter. They are real and they are important. But here's the thing Seligman discovered. Positive emotions alone are not enough. They're the surface of happiness, not the foundation. You can feel good in a moment and still feel deeply unfulfilled. Anyone who has ever had a fun weekend followed by a hollow Monday morning knows exactly what that gap feels like. The second element is engagement. And this is where things get interesting. Seligman describes it as flow, being one with the music, time stopping, and the loss of self-consciousness during an absorbing activity. You felt this. Maybe it was while playing an instrument, building something with your hands, writing, cooking, running, solving a difficult problem at work. You looked up and 2 hours had disappeared. You weren't thinking about your to-do list or your worries. You were simply in it, fully present, fully alive. That state, that absorption, is one of the most reliable markers of a well-lived life. And notably, it has almost nothing to do with whether you're smiling. But Seligman saved the most important element for last. The third is meaning. He was careful to point out that positive emotions and engagement can, at times, be solitary pursuits. You can feel good alone. You can enter flow alone. But meaning, true meaning, almost always points outward. It connects you to something beyond yourself. Seligman put it plainly. Human beings want meaning and purpose in life. And typically, that means serving something you believe is bigger than you are. A community, a cause, a family, a future you may never live to see. Feeling that what you do is significant doesn't guarantee happiness. But it is very hard to find real happiness without it. Now, you might hear all of this and think, that's a nice framework. But can meaning actually sustain a person through real, devastating hardship? Not just inconvenience or disappointment. Real suffering? To answer that, we need to leave the psychology lab and enter one of the most harrowing chapters in human history. Because the most powerful case ever made for the role of meaning in human survival wasn't made in a university. It was made inside a concentration camp. Viktor Frankl was an acclaimed Austrian psychotherapist in the 1930s and 40s. Brilliant, respected, with a flourishing career and a full life ahead of him. Then the Nazis imprisoned him. For more than 2.5 years, Frankl endured degradation and suffering that would have destroyed most people. His mother died in a camp. His father died. His wife died. He watched hundreds of fellow prisoners, people living through the exact same horrors, die in spirit long before the Nazis took their lives. They simply gave up. They stopped believing there was any reason to continue. Frankl did not. What kept Viktor Frankl alive was not luck alone, and it was not physical strength. It was meaning. Even in the camp, Frankl held onto a sense of purpose. He observed the human spirit at its most tested. He thought about the book he would write when he survived, because he chose to believe he would survive. He clung to the idea that his suffering could one day serve others, that would not be wasted, that would mean something. In his landmark book, Man's Search for Meaning, he wrote, "Life holds a potential meaning under any conditions, even the most miserable ones." He didn't write those words from an armchair. He wrote them from the other side of hell. When Frankl was finally liberated, he didn't retreat into silence or bitterness. He built. He founded a branch of psychotherapy called logotherapy, from the Greek word logos, meaning purpose or meaning. Its core doctrine is this: the primary driving force in every human life is the search for meaning, not pleasure, not comfort, not even happiness in the conventional sense. Meaning. Frankl identified 3 ways we discover it: by creating something or doing something that matters, by deeply experiencing something or connecting with another person, and, most remarkably, by choosing the attitude we take towards suffering we cannot avoid. Logotherapy went on to help thousands of patients, people dealing with depression, anxiety, and even terminal illness. The prescription wasn't cheerfulness. It was purpose. Here's what strikes me about putting Martin Seligman and Viktor Frankl side by side. One is a scientist who studied happiness in controlled conditions. The other is a man who survived the most extreme conditions imaginable. And yet they arrived at the same destination. Positive emotions matter. Engagement, that experience of flow, matters. But meaning? Meaning is the load-bearing wall. It's what holds everything else up when circumstances try to tear it all down. Seligman built a framework for thriving. Frankl proved it was possible even in devastation. Together, they make one undeniable argument: a life without meaning is a life only half-lived. Whatever your circumstances are right now, whether things are good, hard, or somewhere in between, the question worth sitting with is this: does what I'm doing feel meaningful to me? Not impressive, not well-paid, not what other people expect. Meaningful. Because when you feel that what you're doing matters, to yourself, to the people around you, to something larger, you don't just work differently. You live differently. Time moves differently. Effort feels different. Even struggle feels different. That is not a myth. That is not a motivational poster. That is what the science says. That is what survival says. Happiness isn't about being constantly cheerful. It's about waking up each day and feeling somewhere in your chest that what you're doing matters. The search for that feeling, that's the real work.